Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Many of us like to reach out into the future to get a glimpse into what might be in store for us. Some of us might go to somebody who likes to look into the future as somebody who is kind of trying to be a seer, for instance. One way you might be able to do that is by using what are known as tarot cards. But just imagine if you go and enjoy an interactive theater experience, which is a very unique event where the tarot cards come to life to answer your deepest questions. Come to life, you might ask? Well, participants embody a particular card and access the inherent wisdom unique to that card. It is a transformative experience for cast and audience members alike. On our program today is someone who's been working with the Living Tarot for more than 20 years. Her practice is built on a foundation of lifetime of exploration, practice, and teaching of unconventional spiritual paths, including a 6-year apprenticeship in contemporary shamanism with the Transformative Arts Institute. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our guest, Julia Hess, the Living Tarot Oracle. Julia, thank you for joining us here on the program today.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Now, it's interesting. A lot of us know what tarot cards are, but you really took this in a different direction, it seems like. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it seemed really limited to me. I mean, I've always been fascinated with tarot cards, but they're much more than these two-dimensional images on paper that often when you do a reading or you look at them, you can go away from it. So what I'd like to do is take it a step further and make it relevant in our lives. So how do we bring these cards and the stories they tell to life so that you can actually have change in your life? And it's not just about fortune telling, it's more about presenting you with a picture of what's going on in your life, the influences and energies that are present in your current situation, and then they can show you how to get to where you want to go from there.
Now, was this something that you created?
Well, the Living Tarot Oracle I created with a friend and partner here in Southwest Colorado. So that is a production that the two of us created, Tammy Graham, and now I'm taking it further. I'm taking it on the road, and she's no longer part of it. And so I've kind of refined it a lot. But I've always brought the cards to life through ritual or visualization or storytelling. Before the Living Tarot Oracle presented itself to me.
Gotcha. Now let's talk about exactly what the Living Tarot Oracle actually is.
So what it actually is, it's a training program that is actually became more important than the event itself, because we take people through this process of embodying a specific card, a major arcana card, over a period of a couple of weeks, or over a weekend now, because we're refining the process. And so in embodying that card, they learn to get out of their own way so they can receive the information and the energies present in that card, the archetypal energies, we like to call it. And that in and of itself is transformative. So it was really exciting when we discovered that the participants were getting more out of it than the audience that came through did. So we take people through this training, and then we open our doors to the public, and people buy tickets to get a 1, 2, or 3 card reading, and they actually have interactions with the living embodiment of the cards that they chose. So it's like walking into a magical theater where these archetypes come to life and share their wisdom with you.
Now, how is it that a person actually begins to embody, I guess, a particular energy of a card? I mean, you think of death, that might be something that, they kind of think, well, why would I want to be that? But, how does that work?
It's really interesting. Our most popular cards are death and the devil. Everybody wants to embody those. But how it works is... how it works for the participants, or when I do readings with my own clients or in my own practice, when a comes in death, you learn what the messages are. And death is usually about letting go. It's about the ending of something. And so it's not a negative card in as much as it's a message to you that this thing you've been hanging on to is over and done with, so let it go. So it helps you to incorporate death messages to release that which is no longer alive for you.
I gotcha.
Does that? Yeah. Okay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about what are some of the experiences people have had either participating in the workshop or as a public coming through.
Okay, well, for people participating in the workshop, what we do in our trainings, and we call them engagements, is we have them talk about how their particular card in their life at the time. So if somebody is representing the lovers, and several times we've had couples do the lovers, they talk about how that card has actually either improved their relationship or taught them things about the relationships they're in, or actually have started a new relationship with somebody, and that's fascinating. One year we actually did have a card, a woman that was portraying our death card. She experienced several deaths in her circle, and how that card really helped her understand what those deaths meant and integrate the grief, because definitely there's grieving involved in letting go like that. And then for people coming through, it's I wish I have collected everything that people have said. They've talked about how meaningful it is and how easy it is to get into the flow of having their question answered when the whole environment is created to foster that. And so I've had people talk about how it's helped them understand when they need to end a relationship. Relationships are often, they're 80% of the readings we do. Help them to lose weight, to understand the root causes of their obesity, to help them decide if they're going to move here or not, to help them understand how to help a child that's having a hard time. And we do have children come through. So it brings to life a reading. It gives it a whole new dimension and meaning that just looking at the cards on a table doesn't have.
Now, it's interesting. How does the energy come through in people, I guess?
Well, I tend to stay away from the word channeling because I think it's been overused and misunderstood, but it's very much like channeling. And people, I know tarot card readers themselves will often say, and then the oracles will say, I had no idea what was going to come out of my mouth, and I just sat there until these words came, and it wasn't anything I planned. So it truly feels like an inspiration that you're guided to speak.
Do people actually feel like a little bit eerie when something like that happens?
By the time we're done with our training, they're used to it. Yeah, and because we do a lot of practice in our trainings and our engagements and a lot of going back and forth, so we're doing the practicing and the actual embodying the oracles, so for the archetypes. So when we finally open our doors to the public, they're pretty prepared.
Now let's talk about how the Living Tarot Oracle could be useful for or relevant to the needs of our times.
Yeah. The needs of our times, there are so many systems that are collapsing and threatening us. And when we put our faith or intention in these external systems, we're going to be disappointed and we're going to engage in the duality, the us and them, and, everybody's fighting against everybody. But the essential core of the tarot, of the major arcana in the tarot, it tells the story, the fool's journey from duality to wholeness. So the fool goes through all of these steps, and we cover this in the training until they get to the world card, which is the final card, and the world card represents the unification of the duality. So we're, I'm getting astray from your question. So how it meets the needs of our times is it helps us to see that we're all operating as a whole. Everything is interconnected.
How have you used it for yourself?
Oh, my gosh. That's a big question. I have used it to guide my life for the last 20 years, much in the way I use dreams. I do a lot of dream work, too, and they intersect a lot. I like to say what tarot does is it provides you a snapshot of where you're at, the influences in your life, and it helps you create a roadmap of where you want to go. And that's how I've used it. My husband and I have made a couple major relocations the last 15 years. We're about ready to make another one where we've gone to some place we've never been before in creative life. Much of that has been guided by tarot and the stories that I'm getting reflected back to me. It's time to make a change. It's time to move on. It's time to take a leap. And we do, and we land, and here we are, and I'm about ready to take another leap in this fool's journey and move to a brand new place where I've never been before.
Now, do you think that people actually come to see their future being read so they can kind of predict and maybe, I guess, avoid pain and suffering, or what do people usually come to this for?
Well, usually, I think that's kind of that's what a lot of people expect. But I work with, and I do classes, and I try to train people away from the fortunes told, and more of using it as guidelines. You need to make the life you want. So it's really disempowering, and I've worked on psychic hotline, and it's really disempowering if somebody says, "I want to know what's going to happen to me." But it's much more useful to say, well, what do you want to happen? Let's look at that. And then we can look at what the energies are for you right now while you're in the situation you're in, and then look at what you want to solve. So I really try to educate my clients and students away from fortune telling into creating the life that they want.
Gotcha. I could see that. A lot of people, I think they come, they'll go to something like that, and they're hoping that it's going to tell them about a future that's absolutely going to happen, and so you look for what would be known as accuracy. How often do you find yourself dealing with that?
Well, actually, I dealt with that a lot on the psychic hotline, but in my own clientele, from me. And at the same time, it can be reasonably predictive. So, there are possible outcomes. Well, are the possibilities to change those outcomes? It's kind of like the weather. If the weather can be pretty accurate weather prediction. The closer you are, like you can see what it's going to be in 24 hours or possibly a week. But the further out you get, the more likely there are other influences to come in and affect that possible outcome. So, did that answer your question?
Pretty much, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, how do you answer people who are, scared to get a reading?
Well, I was going to say a lot of people won't get readings because they don't want to know their future. And so I'll answer them in the same way. Well, the way I do it, the way I've been trained and the way that works for me is to look at the influences happening now and then how to create the future you want, what steps to take. And so that's pretty much my pat answer.
Now, you talk about training people in this, so tell us what training is like. What's involved?
So our engagements for the Living Tarot Oracle, it's actually a full-body experience. So I'll take them, one of the first things we do is after they select their cards, what card they want to be, I'll take them on a guided journey or a guided visualization where they actually meet the archetype of their card. They enter into the card, they experience it as if the card comes to life and they're seeing the world through their archetype's eyes. So, for instance, like the Empress Major Arcana card, what would it be like to actually enter into the Empress and look at her world through her eyes? What are the sounds you're hearing? What's her environment? Is she indoors or outdoors? What moves her? What inspires her? And then they make a contract with her archetype based on what is it the archetype wants from them and what do they want from the archetype. So they move forward with this agreement that they're working with the permission and with the inspiration from that particular card's archetype. So we do that first of all, and then we have a whole toolbox full of exercises, both vocal, We do a lot with vocalization, so people get used to being kind of like improvising, spontaneously letting their voice be used for something. We do movement exercises. We do a lot of interaction exercises where they're interacting with each other as the cards. So you can have the chariot and the empress working together, which actually doesn't work very well because she's just sitting there and he's wanting to move ahead. So we get this great spontaneous interactions going, and that's where the oracles really get to practice being the channel and being inspired and letting the voice and the words move through them. So it's very physical.
Now, it was interesting when I was first presented with this opportunity here. I was thinking of a time years ago where I was involved one afternoon with what was known as family constellation therapy. And it sounded almost like the same thing that you're talking about here. The only difference is that you use tarot cards, or they embody a tarot card type, versus being a family member, where somebody's trying to have an issue, whatever the case is, answered, where you're kind of going back to find out how did this all start and how does this get resolved. And it was really eerie to watch at times as certain people who were who they were would actually say take on a grandmother. Or, it could be an uncle or a cousin or a brother, whatever the case is. And this guy, he would actually align these people. He would ask, first of all, who's willing to do this on this particular, because you can sit out or you can be involved. Say, okay, you're going to be this, and I'm going to put you right here. And he'd put people in certain places. And after a while, what was strange about that is how these people would actually embody or take on, I guess, the likeness of the person that they were supposed to be. Like, for instance, it could be the grandfather. And all of a sudden they would say it was strange enough that spontaneously that certain things they felt were working through them, and they just couldn't, put their finger on what that was exactly. And then there were some that I felt, that were kind of overacting. It was like watching dinner theater. Right. And you kind of separate, but you could almost feel, though, the authenticity of the real thing happening versus somebody who's maybe taking it over the edge and, just, come on, we knock it off.
Right. That sounds exactly like this. Yeah, and It is amazing. Like, where does that come from? Yeah, it's beautiful. We've also done one experiment at a conference using the court cards. I don't know if you're familiar with tarot at all.
No, I'm not.
But there's the major arcana, which are 22. They represent the archetypes of the different stages of life we move through from duality to wholeness. Then we have the minor arcana, which are the four suits, and they represent our mental bodies, emotional bodies, physical bodies, and spiritual bodies. And then within those suits are the court cards, the four court cards that can represent the people in our lives. So a lot in the same way, the court cards are families. You can see in the court cards different family members or important people in your life that have influenced you in some way. So
now, what typically do people, when they come to you for this, usually come to you for?
Usually, well, for the Living Tarot Oracle, a lot of it is people that just love theater and things like the Renaissance Fair. Are you talking about Living Tarot Oracle in specific?
Yes.
Specifically? Okay. So after our first one, people were just bringing their friends, and each year, we did 5 years in Durango, Colorado. Each year, we would have about 50% of the people had come back. They were alumni, and then 50% new ones. So a lot of different things, a lot from their friends' excitement, and then it became like a transformative experience for them. So the spiritual aspect of it brought them back, and then just the bonding that you create, that, as part of any production. There's the potential for a great bonding and a family feeling. So, and then to open your doors to the public and have people, create this magical world where people can come in and have a really amazing, transformative experience. It's just what an opportunity and what a gift.
Right. Interesting stuff here. Now, How can people get involved with something like this? Is this something that is on the road? Do they have to go to Colorado? How does all this work?
No, actually, I'm on the road. We've just redesigned it. I've spent the last year taking it to the next level, which is how can we make it so we can take it to different places. So I've been working to streamline the training, and I have a website that I can be contacted by, livingtarot.oracle.com. But we've streamlined the training into a weekend workshop. So what we're doing is doing weekend workshops, and when we get enough people trained in one place, we can put on the full production of the Living Tarot Oracle. But the weekend workshop will be the training, and then we'll have our doors open in the afternoon to family and friends so they can have that oracular experience. So that's how we can do it. When we get enough people in each community, and I have another teacher that'll travel with me, we can do this all over the world.
Now, it sounds like it's really picked up momentum since I understand there was someone who actually worked with you that introduced you to it, and you kind of, as you said, you're taking it to the next level, and it seems that a lot of people are becoming very interested in this. Yeah, actually, it came from me and then a partner of mine, because I did this reading. Can I tell you about the origins of it?
Yes. A little bit?
Yes, please.
I do a lot of ritual and ceremony, which came from my shamanic training. And so my husband was gone for a week, and I did my annual reading around my birthday, and I had the cards laid out on the floor, and I could just leave them up. So every day I'd come home from work and sit in meditation with him. And then one evening I just went, you know what, I'm going to call these forward. And so I visualized them. I just went in my ceremonial space, and each of the cards came to life for me. And I went and asked each of them my question, and they answered me in this, I would call it a dream state, but it was more than a dream state. And it was so exciting and so vivid that I went, oh, I wonder if I can do this for other people. So I did a workshop where we all did that for each other. We each did a reading, and then we'd stand in for the cards. And one of my friends here in Durango, who produces musical and theater events, she came and she said, we can do this for the public. And so it was from that little seed of the two of us coming together that we decided to create a training program that we can open our doors to the public for this unique theater event. So it was actually born right here in this little tiny cow town. And we had people coming from all over, and in 2013, these people came from England that have the largest professional tarot organization in the world, and they gave us the prize for the best event of the year, and that's what kind of made me go, okay, I want to take this bigger, because we started getting calls for it. My friend Tammy didn't want to, and she gave me her blessing to take it on the road and do what I needed to do with it. So that was the origins from my humble little, loft.
Well, it shows a necessity, or at least an intriguement by people who, take a look at this and think, well, this is a kind of a way of stepping out of, I guess, my thinking, of a two-dimensional world, and realizing that there are possibilities beyond this that we can explore.
Right. Yeah, and it just feels like the possibilities are endless. Who knows what's going to evolve?
Now, how about for you? Have you found anything that kind of intrigued you as you were involved with this?
Oh, well, the whole thing's intriguing me. I mean, I've invested a tremendous amount in it and quit my job so I could do this full time. Is that what you mean?
Sure.
Or, yeah. I mean, I'm just captivated and passionate and dedicated to bringing this to life in the world so, everybody can experience. And, back to the question, how does it meet the needs of the times? When we can show up beautifully in our power in a spontaneous, magical way and allow ourselves to be inspired, we can meet the challenges that are so present right now in creative and unique and ultimately loving ways.
sounds very empowering. Now, I was wondering, Julia, is there a place people can find out more about you, your work, where you're going to be, things like that?
Right. Thank you for asking. I have two websites. One is the Living Tarot Oracle website, and it's livingtarotoracle.com. And I'm in the process of upgrading it, but there's a lot of information there now and a lot of pictures you can see from past events, what the oracles actually look like and what the venue looks like. And then I have my personal website. My business is called Insight Tarot, and my personal website is Julia Hess, and it's JuliaHesse.com. And then that talks about the readings and my approach to tarot. But also I'll be in Portland at the Northwest Tarot Symposium March 3rd through 5th. I'll be presenting a workshop on the Living Tarot Oracle then. And I've been around. I've been to England and Texas and was supposed to go to Florida, but I got Hurricane Matthew'd out to present, a miniature workshop of the Living Tarot Oracle. And I give people an experiential taste of what it's like to be involved.
Well, Julia, this certainly is very fascinating, I think, for our listeners out there who want to take maybe tarot to a whole new level, and they can discover how they can possibly go about doing that. And I, first of all, want to thank you for being on the program today, but mostly, what was those websites again for our listeners? Okay,
so the livingtarotoracle.com, so that's the Living Tarot Oracle specific. People can email me at vital, V-I-T-A-L, at livingtarotoracle.com, and I can send them some information. And then my personal website is Julia Hesse, JuliaHesse.com. And they can contact me anyway. They can get readings from me. They can apply to be a sponsor and bring the Living Tarot Oracle to their community. We have it streamlined to a weekend event to take people through the training.
Well, thank you so much, Julia Hesse, for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today. I think it would be neat to meet up with you and be the fool's card.
Oh, well, I know where you live, and you know where I'm coming. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for tuning in. You can also discover more. Visit us at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. We encourage you to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter and keep updated on what's going on in the world of Beyond 50 as well as upcoming programs. Follow us on Twitter at Beyond 50 Radio as well as Facebook. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 Radio program, and remember, live your day past halfway.